Well, tomorrow is Labor Day, and so I would like to give us a little bit of history lesson, perhaps some of it from my own thoughts, my own opinions of Labor Day. But I would like for us to recognize that Labor Day is a time for recognizing contributions and achievements of the American workers, both socially and economically. Activists way back in the day pushed for a day to be set aside to organize and recognize workers for their contributions to American strength, prosperity, and well-being. There's a controversy over whether it was originally thought of by Peter J. McGuire or Matthew Maguire. Nevertheless, it became a national holiday in 1894 by President Grover Cleveland. Often on this day, we celebrate with picnics and parades and gatherings, but always we should set aside on national holidays a time of appreciation. And for Labor Day, we should set aside a time of appreciation for the American worker who strengthens our freedom, demonstrates leadership, provides service, and establishes solidarity for our American dream and our American values. The definition, our talk title is actually Labor of Love, playing a little bit on the Labor Day theme, but not entirely, more or less looking at each of our roles in the labor of love. And so the definition of labor of love is a task done for pleasure or benefit of a loved one, not a reward. Well, if reward means doing something simply to get something, then I would fully agree with that statement that a labor of love is a task done for pleasure and benefit for someone else. Don't know that I would even just say a loved one unless we're so on the same page that we realize that everyone and everything is our loved ones. And when we are on that same page, then absolutely. But I have another way of seeing that idea of reward. And it is the idea that the reward is the consequence of our actions. It is the outcome or the effect. Everything that we do has a consequence. So engaging in labors of love helps us to realize that the outcome will be more positive. And so when we look at the idea of reward being an effect, we are looking at whatever we're doing as creating pleasure and benefit for good. And this directly relates to our centers, our global home office idea of mission statement of a world that works well for everyone, not just us. And so the effect that we get often is the reward of watching someone else experience joy. And in that process, sometimes the labor of love means that we accept that which is given to us with joy and thanksgiving, instead of saying, oh no, I couldn't, but rather saying, thank you so much. And I think that for some of us that can be difficult, yes, to simply say thank you and to feel worthy. So I invite us to look at this idea that whatever we do it in correspondence with love. And love is just another word for me for God. We do it in correspondence with God. We do it in correspondence with the nature of life and the way that it operates, so that whatever we put out as a cause has the effect that we desire for it to have. Because I don't know about you, but there have been many times in my life where I thought I was performing a labor of love, only to find out that that wasn't at all the way the other person was perceiving my labor of love. And so sometimes it's getting real with what the other person would want, not just what we think is best. And sometimes that takes a little more inner thought and contemplation before taking the action. And the way to do that is to make sure we are in partnership with God, with life, with the energy of perfection and wholeness that life is. So there is a story actually from a doctor who lives in Gainesville, Florida. It was written in Reader's Digest many years ago. And this doctor was leaving his office at the end of the day, and he was feeling rather tired and worn out. It had been a long day. And his last patient was a young man by the name of Jimmy, who he had to give the dire diagnosis of pancreatic cancer. So he was not feeling real well when he left his office. But as he left and he was walking through the parking lot, he noticed an elderly gentleman was handing a tool to someone who was underneath the car. And so he walked over to see what was going on, and out from under the car comes Jimmy. And the doctor says, "Jimmy, what are you doing?" And Jimmy dusts off his pants and he says, "Well, Doc, my cancer didn't tell me not to help others." And then Jimmy signaled to the man to get in his car and start it. The engine roared and the man said thank you and waved and drove away. And Jimmy said goodbye to the doctor and got in his car and drove away. And the doctor said, well, while I was feeling glum and saddened by having to give him that diagnosis, he was out doing good in the world. And for the doctor who wrote the story, he says his takeaway was that kindness has no limits and no restrictions. Kindness has no limits and no restrictions. So we are all about doing labors of love in the world with an intention that is a cause for good, and knowing that on the other side, the effect that is resonating in the world, resonating with the person or people that we are doing it for and with, and ourselves, is good.
I have a reading by Ernest Holmes. We shared this book a couple of weeks ago, Your Invisible Power. But the opening part of it, I think it's very relevant to Labor Day. And so I'd like to read part of it. I'm going to read excerpts from it, because I think it's really kind of powerful in terms of understanding what is ours to do in the world, and working in unison or working in cooperation with our higher power. It's called God, Your Silent Partner. We are in partnership with the infinite mind. The name of this partnership is God and Company, the supreme intelligence, the universal creative order, the dynamic law, and the all-perfect presence. This is God, the silent partner. We are the company. This partnership cannot be dissolved by this union, because this union was never created. It always has been and always must remain. We are in league with the universe and this company, with which we do business, having its center everywhere and its circumference nowhere, being omnipresent. Is localized wherever thought and consciousness function. Wherever we place our attention, there the company is doing business. And wherever the company does business, there is divine activity. God and Company has no competitors. There are no other goods so perfect as those we manufacture. There are no other partners so attractive, or no other patterns so attractive. There is no other machinery so noiseless, perfect, and efficient. God and Company, therefore, never deals with competition, but always with completeness. Wherever our thought is, there this company establishes its branch. With God and Company, business is always good. To know this is to know the truth about one's business, to understand what is exactly so about one's profession, and to know what activity really means. Who would dissolve such a divine partnership as this? If we have a business which has no competitors and over which there is no monopoly, if we have a business that is always good, always active, if we have an intelligence to run this business, and if this business is really the business of living, then indeed we are successful. Does that speak to Labor Day or what? So it's ours to determine what is ours to do in the world to make the world a better place. What is our thing that we are meant to do? BB's reading this morning, so divinely inspired, fits so perfectly into this talk today in terms of what is ours to do. Most of us probably know what has been ours to do in the world. We probably had careers and positions in our life where we fulfilled what we believed was ours to do. We found our niche, where we kind of fit into the scheme of life. And we feel that we have determined what is ours to do. But you know, life is changing. Life is changing a lot faster every day than it ever has in the past. And I was thinking about this week, and I was wondering, I wonder if everybody who reaches my age realizes that life is passing by so quickly, and there's so many changes, and the world is changing so quickly. I don't quite often recognize things from one day to the next. I don't remember feeling this way in earlier years of my life, except when I got my cell phone and didn't know how to use all those things. Or when I got a new television or something and couldn't program it to record what I wanted to and so on. But now it seems like daily, I feel like I'm trying to catch up. I'm trying to determine where is my position in this world and what is mine to do in this world in an ever-changing world. Am I just keep doing what I've been doing, or am I meant to evolve along with what's happening? So what is yours to do in the world? What is your labor of love in the world? And what if all the things you have done in the past may seem a little bit irrelevant? Where is the place where you can evolve into making what you do more relevant to the world? You know, we don't live in the same world as the philosophers and the inventors and the scientists and the teachers and the builders of our society. The world has changed quite a bit. Just coming in today and our air conditioning being on the fritz makes me think about, well, 30 years ago, you may have not had an air conditioner here to start with. And it wouldn't have been a big deal for people to come in and have fans going on. But today, it's a big shift, isn't it? We walked in and the heat was pretty oppressive when we walked through the door. So Deb ran home and got fans that just got it help a little bit. So our world view and ways of living are changing constantly, daily, faster than any time in the past, yet slower than any time in the future. Things are going to continue to change at faster and faster pace. We're the bearers of a lost civilization in a way. We're living in a lost civilization, a different way of living, yet we're standing on the threshold of new possibilities. And as science reminders, we know that to be the truth, that there's an infinite realm of possibilities. Whether you're running a business or simply having a conversation or communicating, we're constantly learning new methods that are making our way of doing things seem rather obsolete. Paradigm shifts are the norm now. Paradigm shifts, completely new ideas, completely new ways of looking at the world. New paradigms are not as revolutionary as they are necessary nowadays. We're living in a constantly evolving landscape in which new thought of just a few years ago is now becoming irrelevant. You know, there are a lot of new ministers in Science of Mind teaching new thought principles, saying that they don't necessarily relate to the teachings of Ernest Holmes, Thomas Troward, and Emma Curtis Hopkins, because it's old language and it's old philosophies and it's old ideas. I don't agree with that at all. I believe those teachings are as new today as they were then, or newer to us today, whatever. I mean, how you look at it. I think they're relevant. And I think it depends on how we can actually look at them and translate them and be able to understand them. And we need to look at King James kind of language and make sense of it in today's happenings. We are the appreciators of moral values that seem to be going away these days. And we're the harbingers of new horizons because we know about the possibilities, the divine realm of possibility, and new ideas. We must decide if the cornerstones of our beliefs are a firm foundation for what is to come, or if they're an anchor that holds us from growing into a greater tomorrow. Are the things that we have always thought and always believed relevant to what is happening today? Or is our labor of love to change and make it relevant? I believe our labor of love is to hold and sustain our eternal truths because they are important. And we desire to find ways to make them relevant in a constantly changing world. So they remain part of the evolving mix. So they're always part of the standard idea of what it is to be complete and whole. I believe it's ours to foster meaningful growth, not just rampant progress. Because what is progress if it doesn't move in a positive direction? We need to be succeeding, not just moving on, not moving in a forward direction. We need to be moving and growing and expanding in consciousness. But we need to challenge things that happen around us, but we need to choose our battles wisely. We don't need to be spinning our wheels unnecessarily. There are a lot of things that are happening that really seem to bother me. They're like little pet peeves to me. And like I talked about my cell phone, I just got a cell phone 2 years ago and it's already beginning to have problems and it's not keeping up with technology. And I'm thinking, Deborah had hers for like 5 years now, 6 years, and she can turn it on and she can talk to people, but that's about it. But I think my phone, even a couple of years ago, is not quite where it needs to be. Do I need to move on? Probably. One of my biggest pet peeves is grammar. Maybe because I was taught these things that they're absolute truths, but it bothers me when somebody says, me and Bobby went to the store. It just crawls up my spine. And Bobby went to the store to buy Deborah and I a present. Those things irk me. And I used to go around and correct people all the time when they said that. But then I thought, it's in all the movies. It's in the news. All of our kids are doing it. My students at school are doing it. And I think, am I the only one? Well, Deborah I know does. But am I the only one that really cares anymore? And it makes sense. What they're saying makes sense. It's backwards and it's improper. But does it really matter? I remember when they decided you no longer have to put 2 spaces after a period when you're typing. It took me a long time to not get to the point where I just do 1 space after a period. I said, why do I have to change? I've been doing this for 40 years. Why do I have to change what I've always thought? And people started correcting what I was writing, saying, you don't need 2 periods. So it takes me too long to go through that space. So I changed. I do 1 period now. I'm used to it now. I've grown. I know how to use my phone. I know how to get on Instagram. And, you name it, all those what do you call it, social networking. What about moral fiber in our society? What about honesty and truth? Doggone, those are important values to me. I have a hard time giving up truth. And that it really matters. To me, yes, it really matters. If public officials are telling us things that are not true, it really bothers me. And I can't stand it. And so I just don't watch a lot of that stuff on television anymore. I just don't deal with it. I go by what I believe to be the truth and honor that. I know that I'm getting left in the past in a lot of areas. I know technology is passing by me in some respects, but I honor people who are millennials and see the growth that's happening in their completely different way of looking at life. Honor that and try to learn from it and try to expand who I am. And that way, I am indeed doing my labor of love. I'm holding what is valuable, fostering that into those who are changing the world.
I didn't know all that.
You know what?
Well, I think you've changed a lot. Look, we're online now too. So I think you're moving right along there. And I'm the opposite. I don't really care if I have a phone that my kids call a dinosaur. And so think for just a moment, what about you? Where are you on this path? Are there areas that you would like to shift, change, expand? Or are there areas that you're comfortable with? Because labor of love isn't just about giving everyone else pleasure and joy. It's about ourselves too. And I think that that's really important. And for me, that was the story that Bibi was talking about. I had in my notes, and I had that story down to tell one day, so I'll still use it too, because it is a good one, and there's a lot to be said about that. I had in my notes the idea that sometimes I think we think that we have to be like Jesus, or any of the people Bibi mentioned, because we are using those stories as ideal stories for us to take on the values and move them forward. But we don't. We don't have to have some magnificent feat accomplished in order to perform daily labors of love. Everything that we say to every human being and pets, and every action that we take, if we are in partnership with God, we are performing a labor of love, and we are invaluable in this society as we grow together in consciousness and life. And so it is.